Welcome to the Mindful Momentum Leadership Podcast. Today we are excited to have with us Pankaj Rai. Pankaj Rai is the Group Chief Data Analytics Officer with Aditya Birla Group based in Bangalore. I had the pleasure of meeting Pankaj in Bangalore during my recent visit to India. I remember it was on January 31st afternoon. I had gone in with my niece for a women's networking event. And she said, "Why don't you come along? And it'll be nice for you to see how women interact with each other, what the networking events look like in a city like Bangalore." And intrigued and interested and curious, I was there. And as I attended the event, it turned out that this group of, I think it's about 1,500 women, is 1,500 women plus one man, the founder of this group. And that is you, Pankaj. And everyone who spoke there, every single senior, and these were very senior women, CFOs and CEOs and founders of their company, they talked about how, you being there as a catalyst and an ally has given such a powerful forum to women. And I knew I had to bring you here for my podcast. So welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you. Great to be now interacting over a podcast over the seven seas after meeting here
Yeah.
in Bangalore in person. Yeah.
My first question is this: what has inspired you to be who you are, so invested in the growth of women?
I think the way you described that meeting that you attended and what you saw. See, many a times, I mean, you would also agree that when we see the final outcome, which is what you saw, doesn't necessarily tell you a lot about where how we got there. So let me tell you the story of that event, and then you'll probably have a different flavor of what you may have had so far, because many a time we see the final thing and say this must be that, but sometimes the story is different. So in this particular case, what had happened was I have been in the data analytics type of field, and this field is doesn't necessarily have too many, or at least historically didn't have too many women. So I remember once upon a time, a friend of mine said, it's a Women's Day, and I'm trying to do a women's only panel for analytics. And since you are in the field, why don't you introduce me to some of them? So I'm a very WhatsApp guy. I said, okay, you know what? What I'll do is I'll just create a WhatsApp group. I'll add all my friends who are into analytics, and why don't you just chat with them and bring some of them onto the panel? So that's how that group initially was called Women in Analytics, and it stayed for some time because that event got over, people forgot about it. Then someone from there itself said, "Oh, I want to do something in digital." And then one of them asked me, "Why do you know more people beyond this group?" And I said, "Yeah, why don't I add a bunch of other people who, quote unquote, can be called digital?" So that group grew. It was renamed Women in Digital. And again, that event happened. So this was all event based. We want to do a panel and we want people on the same plane. And then some of those started to know each other. They would interact a bit. And then COVID came. So
Mm,
during COVID time, I think I'm sure all WhatsApp groups engagement must have increased because people are not going anywhere. They were just engaging on group they were part of. So this group also started engaging. People were talking to each other, and then someone said, "Oh, why don't I bring some friend of mine and add them here? It'll be good to chat." So people started, and I whatever groups I make everyone the admin. I'm saying I'm not the owner of the group. You are all. It's a community. So people started adding other people. It became broad. Then people said, "Oh, so and so is doing HR in digital. Why don't I add them also?" So the scope creep, as they say, started happening. And then someone said, "Why can't this just be a women's group? Why does it have to be digital?" I said, Surely, why not?" So net, the origin from analytics to digital to whatever, and now eventually it became a women's group. And then some of the women within that said, "Oh, many of us don't know each other. We've just chatted on WhatsApp." And this was again during COVID, so people are not meeting. So some of them, Sandhya Shriram is one of them who you probably met that day, who would organize it, and many others over there said, "We'll organize a get together. We'll meet each other face to face."
yeah.
So I think that's how the first event, I think 3, 4 years ago, happened. I think that was organized by Supriya in Kurumangala club. And oh no, this was in KGA, I think. And then after that, the same volunteering group, they'll come together, they'll organize an event. So I think the one you attended was probably the fourth or fifth. So I think it was just an organic growth, and people started meeting each other, and then started, and since I was the sort of, you can say, the originator, I was always invited, and I tried to make time and attend them. And I had also added many people who I knew. I mean, all my friends who were women, I said, there's a group. Why don't I add you there? You'll also have a good network. So this is the origin and so forth, Anu, that you see over there. It's very, very organic. With no specific purpose. What has also happened now in that WhatsApp group, people have formed smaller communities also on social impact, on entrepreneurship, on jobs, and all of that. So it is just growing organically. I think a few people at this point in time, I see Sandhya Shriram, the CFO of Narayana, as the taking the lead and bringing other volunteers. But I think it's a community driving it, and they do what they do. I'm just a participant, and since the group has already reached 1024, and you can't add any more people, there's little scope to add people there. But people do get their friends along for these events. So that's a slightly longer story
I
of what you
think
saw.
the unofficial number is 1500.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many subgroups there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when you look back at even this organic growth of the group, what's about you? Have you ever reflected on which kind of enables that kind of movement? Because what you created was not just a group. Even though it was a event based, and then one event became another event, and another event became a small women's group, and then it expanded, and now it has subgroups again. There was more than just getting people together.
Yeah.
Have you
I
had
think,
chance, or maybe people have told you what's about you that kind of starts movements?
yeah, hard to say. I think the thing that come to mind is curiosity. So whenever I meet someone, I'm just curious in general to know more about them, to know more about what they know, so that I can through them get their own experiences. So that I have found. So this morning, so I go for a morning walk. This morning I was walking around with my group of friends over here in Koramangala around a lake, and then I see this young boy sitting there on a chair, reading a book called Meghdut. So I was intrigued. I said, "Oh wow, I haven't remembered Meghdut in a long, long time." So I just said, "Hey, it's interesting to see you read it. Why don't you come walk with us?" And then we discovered that he started walking with us. He's a tech person from Jaipur, and he's moved to Bangalore to work. And now he's part of our running walking group, already added to his WhatsApp group. He'll probably come for a run. And so that's how organically many of my groups have become. I have a running group, cycling group, many types of groups. And the idea is that bring people together on a common theme that you are all interested in, and it's fun. So I get to learn about different things through these runs. In fact, my running group goes by the this thing that you are doing conversation, that you're talking and running. So I learn a lot from those groups. So I think curiosity leads to community forming, is my guess.
Yeah, yeah. There are a few other things I also heard as you were explaining the formation of the networking, the women networking group. Is one was you were enabling everyone. You said I wasn't the admin. Anybody could take leadership, and like Sandhya is taking leadership now, and everyone is a leader, and that's something I saw also during that day. The second thing which I heard from everyone is that you show up. You're there to support, you're there to listen, you're there to engage, you're there with your curious eyes and ears and engaging in new conversations with new members. You took time to speak with me. There were so many people present that day.
So I think, whatever narrative you bring to any situation, there can be a counter narrative also. So let me just give you a counter to the couple of things that you just said. So,
You are a
and
humble
I'm
guy.
no, no, no. What I'm saying is, it's hard to sometimes say which is which. And we can choose narrative. As they say, na, glass half full or half empty, depends
Yeah,
on your perspective. And you
yeah.
would never know. So the counter to enabling everyone else could be, and I don't know what is what, is that I'm very lazy. I don't want to take ownership and leadership in bringing people together, organizing events, and all of that. So I would rather someone else do it, and I show up, and I don't have to take the sort of responsibility of doing all of those things. I'm quite happy initiating it, as they say, the 0 to 1. I'm in general not interested in 1 to 10 or 10 to 100. So I think in some ways I'm probably a 0 to 1 guy who just plants the seed, initiate, and let someone else grow it. So that's one. Second one about showing up. I think I'm curious that maybe in this event when I go, I'll meet some new people who I don't know. So in this case, I met you. I didn't know you. You sounded interesting. So why would I spend time on other people that I already know? I would rather spend time on someone I don't know. So I just think that there can be several different narratives to anything that is happening around us, and we tend to choose the narrative that shows us in a good light. I just think that I don't have to be shown in a good or a bad light. It is what it is. Tatvamasi, it is what it is. I don't necessarily have to put an adjective to it.
Okay, adjectives are for me to decide, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
There was another narrative which I heard, and now you can give me a counter narrative, or you can, give your perspective on that. And that was how many women got engaged in fitness because of you, right? Especially working women. It's a hard life in Bangalore. I had to travel once or twice to places as far as Koramangala. I was staying in Jayanagar, and that was quite a commute. People do that kind of commute every single day for work, and these women have homes and busy careers, and they are in very senior leadership levels, so they don't really consider their own health and fitness. And you brought that to the into the equation, and so many of them took on to running as a result. And we heard stories of them doing triathlons as a result,
Mm.
from nothing to triathlons. So, how would that health and wellness, your interest there, and how are you bringing people along? And you just told me the story of Meghdut guy who is a part of your running group.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I've just been, meeting people and encouraging them to join the running group because I think I just enjoy running with new people and learning from them through those conversations. So that's been the theme since 21 years ago when I came here, and we have a very lively running group, and we meet and we sort of do breakfast and things like that together. I think as far as women are concerned, one of the things that I have observed is that I think this is one activity where they are on their own. There is no one else, and they can, you know, there is a sense of achievement in doing something on your own. Because I think one of my women friends only told me that there are some studies which say that women in our society tend to have a bit of a derived identity. You know, you're a daughter or a wife or whatever, whatever. Sometimes the identity is not getting formed on your own because you're not on your own doing many things. You are just either helping it or not necessarily leading it, so to say, right? I think this running and fitness is one area where you are there. You are on the podium. You are on your own. You are doing the 5K. You are doing the 10K. So I have found that this type of activity helps build identity, helps build fitness, helps build a sense of confidence. And one of my things in my mind also has been that I have two daughters, and I think many of the ideas that I learn from these groups is something that I can also share with my daughters. So my elder daughter has also started this, and they were both running a bit, but now she's on her own. She went and did a routine marathon. Younger one has just taken up boxing. So I do think that physical fitness, we all know, is good for everyone. But in our society, sometimes the women tend to do less of that because whatever societal constraints and so on and so forth. And I think running is a great place. Anyone can do it. You don't need any gear. You don't need anything else. You can just go into a park. There's so many other people. There's no constraint and so forth. So that's how I think many people took to running because I encouraged them. I said, I'm doing it. My daughters are doing it some other time. Just show up at Common Park one day. And I think people enjoyed the community, enjoyed the sense of achievement, and of course, enjoyed the breakfast.
Yeah. Oh, I want to talk about the breakfast too. The coffee and breakfast. I think there's something about that too. I think the identity is one thing, but also that social
Mm.
interaction in
Yes, yes.
and just which is away from, not your it's not your regular thing, not with the family, you showing up with getting the kids ready. It's your own conversation you're having.
Yeah, I think if you think about it, we are all tribal, right? Humans, and I think every animal wants to belong to a tribe. I don't think anyone wants to alone. So I think this activity gives you a sense that I'm here because of me. See,
Mm.
many a times you are there because of your kids or your husband, if you take women, or your parents or whatever. You may not be there because of you. Maybe it's your school or college group or whatever. I think here you are there because of you, and there are so many other people with different age groups, and there's a sense of community. So I do think that many of these things probably contributed to the outcome that you see. But many of these things have been happening organically. It wasn't as if there was a grand design behind all of this. Things are happening organically. I didn't go this morning thinking I'll find someone reading Meghdut and I'll recruit him. It just happened.
Whatever you do, Pankaj, becomes a grand design. you, you didn't intend it to be, but here he was. This guy was from Jaipur. He was reading Meghdut. He came along and he's a part of the running group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Give our listeners a sense of your, background. Where did you grow up? What were some of the key influences in your life? How do you became who you are today?
My dad is from grew up in a village in UP, Eastern UP, close to Banaras, Gazipur. And you can think of him as a super 30 guy who landed up in IIT Bombay, knowing only Bhojpuri, not even Hindi, and did well for himself, got scholarships to go abroad. But parents were worried that, already the guy has gone to Bombay, which is too far. Going abroad will be hard. So they said, just find a government job and do the government job, which is what I think was the thing those days, that government jobs are stable. So he, of course, found a government job in a company called Fertilizer Corporation, which was the public sector, and got posted in Gorakhpur factory. So my growing up years were in Gorakhpur factory, some 0 to 8, 9 years. And then dad, of course, was a driven person. He wasn't going to be satisfied retiring in a factory town. So he went to Delhi in a bigger role. And therefore, my most of my growing up years from uh, age 8 to 34, about 25 odd years, we spent in Delhi. He sent me to a school called Modern School, Barakamba Road, which is not known to send kids to IIT. So later on, some people asked me that if your dad wanted you to go to IIT, why were you sent to that school? And the interesting story is that his IIT Bombay class had 14 kids from modern school who spoke very good English. So he always felt that, my son should know English, which I didn't know. So many a times, as we have heard that parents tend to fulfill their own unmet dreams to their children. Maybe there was a bit of that over here. So I did learn English in modern school, and I was sent to IIT because my dad taught me and made sure that I went there. Every evening he'll come teach us maths, and my younger brother, 2 years younger, was also told the same thing. So both of us landed in IIT Delhi 2 years after each other, studied electrical engineering. But after that, he sort of left us alone. That okay, I made sure what you want to do, and after that, usually in those days, people would go abroad, write the exam GRE, which I did. But the SOP, which is the statement of purpose, which asks you to think what you want to do in future. After writing two SOPs, I realized that I had no interest in doing Masters of Electrical Engineering, let alone bachelor's, which I had done because my dad said so, and I was reasonably good in those subjects, and I got there. So the option then left was that then you do an MBA, because there's no what else could you do. So then I took the CAT exam and I got into IIM Ahmedabad. That also was funny because when you look at my profile on LinkedIn, like I said, you see the final outcome and you have a view that, oh, this fellow must be really smart because IIT, IIM, all kinds of stuff. But like I said, IIT was purely because my dad made sure that every evening we were studying for several hours. And if he hadn't done that, I wasn't going to go to IIT. What happened was that they used to have a group discussion. And in my case, that they did not have a group discussion because every other college where there was a GD, I didn't get a call. So I got only one call to go to Ahmedabad. My suspicion is because they didn't have a GD, everyone was given 2 minutes to talk, and I spoke something because I just couldn't talk in front of too many people. So I did learn English in modern school, but I didn't learn enough to talk on top of each other. So I landed up there. My suspicion is by a chance of luck that we didn't have a GD. Over there also, I got placed only on the fourth day when everyone else was placed. And I got two jobs selling light bulbs for Wipro and doing consulting work for a company, startup company called Feedback Venture. And my friends told me that there's no way you can sell light bulbs. You better do consulting, which is probably easier. And that's how I went over there. So I think the main point in this story, in my opinion, is that a lot of things are based on luck. Many things are actually driven by other people. In this case, if my dad wasn't as driven as he was, I wasn't going to go to IT on my own. It's him who made me go there. And then, of course, in IT, there were some other friends who were also preparing. preparing for GRE and all, and they said, let's study together. So I do think that your environment contributes a lot to your life success or failure. Then we give itself the credit too, and
It
that is
is.
what has happened with me. And even future, all my job changes were happened because some friend of mine was there and said, you know what, this will be good for you, and I followed their advice. So to me, I think pretty much everything happened because there were people around me who were telling me something. I was following their advice. So it's hard for me to take any credit for anything.
And but you were open. We were open to
Yeah, yeah.
as things were coming along, you were open. And I don't think there is not.
I can give you a counter narrative there as well. I said maybe I was lazy and just taking up the next thing that was coming along.
Yeah, and maybe now. I think after a while I'd be agreeing to
That's
everything
what I'm
you
saying.
say, and I'd say you were probably lazy. But here's what I'm also hearing with the laziness is that none of our success comes just on our own. There's nothing like this individual climbed Mount Everest. Even if we don't climb a mountain on our own. There is this whole team of people which are enabling us to climb a mountain. And of course, you're saying that the success came through, right people showing up at the right time and, sometimes asking questions, sometimes helping out, sometimes encouraging, and you were then willing to come along.
But success is also a complex word. So I'll give you another anecdote which just happened a couple of days ago. A very close good friend of mine from college days was here, and he was telling my wife, Ripu, that and he's done very well for himself. He's very wealthy, this, that, and the other. So he said, I used to look at Pankaj and feel that he's not very ambitious. He's not. I mean, he could have done so much more, and he was like, just settling for whatever he was. But now when I look back, I think maybe his definition of success was different from mine. Maybe I was giving a lot more weightage to monetary success, and he was giving weightage to the. So the point I'm making is your success parameters could have several variables, and sometimes you also don't know, and other people don't know. So if I were to tell you that Shah Rukh Khan is successful, I have no idea because I don't know what his metrics of success are. He could
Again,
say
it's
that,
like
what you say. Yeah, 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 yeah,
it's like what you were saying. What I see is different than what you see. And it's
yeah, yeah.
just, yeah, and we are forming, we have very limited data when we're looking at the other person, and we are forming opinions based on that. And that may not be truly reflective of how they think of what we are thinking about, right? So
Yes, 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 yes,
so
yes, yes,
exactly.
yes, yes.
There's
Yeah.
something I want to double click on, and that's SOP. You talked about SOP. Where did that come from? The idea that you want to look at what your purpose is, and this as the Masters of Engineering
No,
did fit in. What was
no,
that
that
SOP?
SOP is thanks to your country's admission process where you're expected to write a statement of purpose before you get accepted for any college. So I'm referring to that SOP
Oh,
sheet,
that.
which I started filling in. And before that, no one had asked me what was my statement of purpose. My dad, of course, never asked me.
Eh.
He knew what my purpose should be, and he made sure that I got there. So the first time someone asked me, and after writing two SOPs, I realized that is not what I wanted to do because they said, why do you want to do masters? And I would say, I actually don't. I
But that
barely enjoyed,
reflection is so
yeah,
important, isn't it?
yeah,
That reflection rarely happens. I know growing up, I didn't go through that process of reflection. I wanted to become an engineer because my father was an engineer, and I just adored my father. And if when I was growing up, people would ask me, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to just be like him. I want to wear." And he was a civil engineer, and he'd wear that hat, and he'd
that
go
hat,
for,
yeah, yeah,
his
yeah, yeah,
irrigation,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
duties.
yeah.
And I wanted to wear a hat like him, and
Right, right,
that's
right,
how
right.
I decided to become an engineer. But I don't think we reflected on, is that what we truly want, or is this what, again, does my heart light up? Do I want to do Masters of Engineering or not?
But on that one, what I have observed is that I think you and I both grew up in an era when there was scarcity of everything,
Mhm.
opportunities, food, I mean, what have you. I think we were growing in a scarcity era. I think the mental model for decision making in those days was based more on elimination rather than passion, because you could have had passion in anything, but if the opportunity did not exist, you couldn't pursue it. So I think in general, there were just a few choices. A couple of them you just didn't like. In my case, I didn't like biology, for example. So I had also gotten admission to become a doctor in Maulana Azad College. But frankly, I was clear I did not like biology. I was very scared of blood and dissection of a frog
Frog.
when we were asked to do that. So I said, no, this is not something I can do. So I eliminated biology and went into engineering. And then I eliminated engineering and went into MBA, not because I enjoyed MBA. So I don't think we were, many of us, I mean, some of people probably followed their passion, but a lot of us just followed what was given to us. So I think my theory on this, and this, try to keep some frameworks out of the pattern that I observe. So I see that the trend spotting, I call it trend spotting, was the decision making framework. So my father spotted the trend of doctor engineer and sort of set us up on that trend. I think the opportunity for our next generation is actually trend setting, because trend spotting is a good mental model for scarcity, but in abundance, there's an opportunity to be a trend setter, and you can do what you want. Anu, you are doing what I don't think you would have imagined, but you are now a trend setter because you have found your passion through your own experimentation and moved along a journey which is uniquely your own. You're not following anyone else's trend. But I think you couldn't have done that 30 years ago, because you would have to follow, something that was already existing. So I do think that if we follow the right mental model today, it's actually very, very liberating, because everyone can almost create their own unique path. But they have to get out of the mindset of trend spotting, because today also everyone will ask me, so what is the trend? What's working? What's selling? What can I do? So I do think that we are still using an old mental model when the new data supports a totally new liberating mental model of trend setting. It is hard because you have to experiment, you have to try, but there is fun in trying. I mean, we do it in sports. We tried many sports. I didn't like cricket. I enjoyed running. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So I do think that we can do the same thing in our professional life, which we did in our sports life or extracurricular life. We tried a bunch of things, and then we moved on to something, and then later on tried a bunch of other things, and then we moved on to something. I tried squash much later in life. I enjoyed squash like anything. I never played before. Maybe later in life I may try something new. I'm planning to try swimming. Hopefully, I may enjoy that as well.
I
So I do think
I'm
that we can do these
learning
things.
now
Yeah,
swimming.
yeah,
I
yeah,
learned it as a child, but then never did it, and then I want to learn it
yeah.
again.
Learn
But
properly.
one,
Yeah,
yeah, but one thing is, Pankaj, that I think we have to stay open for to be
yeah.
trendsetter. You
Yes, yes, yes,
have
yes.
to stay open to new experiences, and that brings me to the AI question, which I bet everyone is asking you. The world's changing so fast. People are now panicking a little bit. What they had taken for granted for years, this IT profession was your golden ticket to US, to the West, also a secure job. And it may not be. The things are shifting fast. So what do you see? And I'm not going to ask you what are the trends because we just answered answered that question. Are we going to follow the trend, or are we going to set something which is going to be a new trend within this, and there is an opportunity? So, how do you answer that question?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. First, let me just give you a small this thing on that word trend itself. So a lot of people ask me about trends. So I said, just think about, deconstruct this word trend. Trend is a bunch of people doing something, taking something in a certain direction. So action or kinetic energy creates trends. So I said, do you want to be part of that, or do you want to wait for some other people to do it and then become that? So my basic point to people is that, the trend will be created when someone does something. Why are you a bystander? Why don't you become a part of that trend and create that trend, versus wait for someone else to create a trend and then follow it? So that's one thing to say: bias for action, follow it. And if you become the creator, then the trend is what you create, versus the trend is someone else creates. So something like that. So that's one part on the trend. But I think if you just think of any technology or any invention, It is created to help us do that activity better, but it makes us do things differently. So when we were running and we figured out a horse would take us faster, but then we have to climb a horse. It's a new skill we have to develop. If you don't want to develop a skill of climbing the horse, you could still be running and get tired. And when the car came in, car was faster than the horse, could go longer distances, but then we'll have to learn driving. So my view is, if you look around, many inventions that came around, we only humans created them because they would make us do things better. But then we had to learn it. I mean, we invented the computer, but we have to learn computer. We invented language of computer, we learned language. So I do think that if there is a good trade-off that, if we can learn this thing, I can do it better. We have done it always. Now, suddenly when the AI comes in, my view is it's pretty much the same. Of course, it is a smarter technology, faster technology, all of those types of things. But end of the day, in my mind, it's another technology which can help us do things better. Might as well learn it. And when we learn it, it's fun, right? If you had not learned driving, think of someone who doesn't know driving,
Yeah.
scared and whatever, all of that. But once you learn it, it's liberating. But you have to make that investment to learn it. And everyone learns pretty much everything over a period of time. In fact, I must quote my dear friend Alok Agarwal, who lives in the Bay Area, founder of Sky Analytics. He's written a book called 100 Years of AI. He's a seasoned guy. He was by part of IBM Watson, and he was also founder of eValue Serve. So he's a authority in the field of AI. So that book on 100 Years AI talks about four foundational technologies that came into being. And he talks about the steam engine, the electric motor, the internet, and now AI. And he said, look at the steam engine, look at the electric motor, look at the internet. All of them took probably a generation for all its users to come about. I mean, the steam came in, but the engine probably got invented much later. Similarly, electric motor came in, but the real value of it came much later. Internet came in, but a lot of things started to come. So the point he was making was that when the technology comes in, people start using it. First, they use it for simple ways. Then they figure out complex ways, more innovative ways, and that's when the power is really unleashed. They think about, even the steam. That initially maybe it was just boiling water or doing something, but later you are moving machines and you are
Yeah.
moving, factories and all of that. But that took a long time for people to figure out. Even if you think about electricity, someone would have figured out, oh, I can make a refrigerator out of and use it for doing something, right? So I think the future generations, they experiment more, figure out more transformational users of that technology than the initial ones who cannot go out of their old mindset. They'll only do tinkering with it and say, oh, I'll use it for this. So right now, AI is at that stage where we are sort of tinkering, saying you can do this. But I'm sure this technology also will allow us, and the trendsetters will tell us what else is the art of the possible. So I do think that we should just all embrace it, figure out what it can do. I have been sort of just using simple, we have this within our office also, chat GPT type thing in the Microsoft Office. So I can go into that chatbot and say, how am I doing on this project? It can go through all my emails, all my folders of the last 1 year and tell me how we are doing. And it will tell me better than what anyone else can do it. Very simple stuff. So I think this technology can do as many things as we would like it to do. You can make it a personal tutor. One day I went and said, I don't know this subject. Can you create a course 2 hours a week for the next 12 weeks so that I can learn it? It asked me a few questions and created a course. I did one session. I didn't do all 12 yet, but I'm just saying. So I'm trying to test it out, what all it can do. So I do think that it's limited by our own imagination on how we can use it, and different people will use it differently, just like electricity. People
Yeah.
are going to use it for 100 different things. So I do think that this is a general purpose technology, like electricity, steam engine, and internet, and all of us should embrace it and go on to the next level of productivity and innovation, which we all strive for, but we are scared and we are waiting for someone else to set the trend and follow it, which is the old way. I think there's an
Mm.
opportunity for everyone and anyone sitting in a village to use this technology and do something that helps improve their lives.
So be the trendsetter, and yeah, and stay curious like you always are. Yeah.
And some of those technologies, if you think about it, were not easily accessible. This one is. Anyone sitting anywhere with a mobile phone has access to these technologies. So I think it's far more democratic and liberating, and will have a much bigger impact on lives than the other ones had. And even I mean, frankly, look at internet. TikTok and Instagram are making influencers sitting in remote places. Who would have imagined that? So I
Yeah.
do think that this can be very, very transformational for everyone, not just the people in cities and people who are the privileged lot. I think it can be a big enabler, and at least in India, the whole digital public infrastructure and the whole goal of the government to make everything digital. The idea is to improve lives of the common citizen. So I do think this is going to be transformational.
And also make it a level playing field for everyone. Otherwise, you think about the time in our growing up time, only certain people had access to even books and information. And I remember that I had uncles who lived in UK, and they'll send us a couple of magazines, and we were just shocked to see a whole new world that existed, across the seven seas. And now there's nothing like that. I was in Bangalore, this time I had happened to stay in Bangalore for an extended period, and I saw there was nothing that was happening in US that people in Bangalore didn't know. They knew even more. So having that access to information makes it so much powerful for anyone, anywhere in the world to have a chance at life.
A counter narrative to that, what I observe is that while everyone has much more access to technology for everything possible, like you said, books, internet, all of that, but I think the value capture in the economy is skewed, and we have seen the Gini coefficient or the inequality of wealth and income still increasing. So I
Yeah.
do think that while the technology is enabling, I think the institutional mechanism, whether it is taxation or whether it is ease of doing business or any of those types of things, I think many of those institutional mechanisms, I think probably also need to change, because unless you
They
create
need to
that
change.
mechanism, then I mean, you've seen at least in the US also, where there's a study which says that people who are privileged, their children are getting better education than the ones who are not. So how do you
That
create equal
division is
opportunity?
there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, but somewhere, the one of the factors was they not having access to how to, for example, how to
Yeah.
apply for a college, right?
Yes, yes.
What does a good SAT essay look like? What are so people who were able to get a counselor paying thousands of dollars had a better chance of getting admission into the college. But now, with that chat GPT and other tools, that access is there. So I think from that point of view, but yeah, there are other factors which are still unequal, and the world is
I
still
think
very unequal
I
place.
think we have always seen that, if you are the privileged one, you will figure out newer barriers to entry for the unprivileged in some way or the other. So I remember there was this big scandal in the US that people were like sort of having some other folks helping, make fake CVs or fake whatever, and trying to get this. Or there are these mechanisms where you can give a large donation, and then your kid gets the admission. And there could be many other ways in which you can use your influence to get ahead of the curve. So I do think that there are many things that are there, and we have to just keep making sure that some of those are reduced, so that the benefit of this democratization actually reaches everyone else. So I think this democratization is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for the utopian society that I think you and I try to build.
Yeah, yeah, that
Those
is true.
institutional roadblocks need to be removed as well.
That is true. That is true. When you look at your own life, would you say, are you satisfied with where you are?
So, many a times, there are two questions that are sometimes asked to answer the question that you made. That one is, what regrets you have? What if you go back and you could change something? And this question is often asked. And intuitively, I've always felt that there are no regrets, because I'm sure there are things that went wrong, but then one learned from it and moved along.
Yeah.
So I think I actually don't resonate with that regret question at all. In my opinion, it is framed wrongly, because to me, a regret is usually a thing that went wrong. But we always learn in hindsight through things going wrong. We
Yeah,
don't learn
life
otherwise.
is
So,
the
so there,
learning
yeah. So to
process.
me, having regrets of things going wrong is probably the wrong narration that people are building. I mean, I'm just using harsh words. So to
Yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah.
one tried their best, and whatever came out is what it is. It's like the agile product management process, where we have sprints, we have retrospective, we add new features. Things go wrong sometime, we learn from that, we move
Yeah,
along. So
move
to me, life is
on.
like an agile sprint. You just keep learning, and there's no regret, and you should technically always be satisfied, but striving for more is the way I look at it, saying, hey, what I is not complacent. satisfied, but not complacent. The other one is that, I think this was also asked in some other forum where they said, so what is your bucket list? So that one was looking at the past, this one is looking at the future. So what else do you want to achieve before you hit the bucket, so to say? And my thing was, frankly, I'm mark to market right now. I'm done if that's what you want. So I think being in harmony at any point in time is the feeling I have had. Not that I wanted to have, but that's how I have felt. Now, why it is the way it is, it's very hard to judge. But that's what I said, that sometimes I don't have adjectives or definitions. It is the way it is. I know it is what it is, but why it is, I can add any number of narratives, but I don't know whether any of them will be correct.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. So then, at this point, then it seems like you are in harmony. Would
Yeah.
that be a
Yeah, and that has been the case for a
all
long time in
through,
the past
all
as well. Not,
all
I
through?
won't say all through. I won't say all through. I think since this question started getting asked, I was aware of it. I may have been, but since this question was not asked, I can't say it. But
Uh-huh.
since the question started getting asked, I said, yeah, this is what it is now. Maybe that was the realization that came when the question was asked. It was always there, or it wasn't there. I would have no way to tell.
Yeah, yeah. When you get up in the morning, how do you look at a day? I'm now very curious. I'm just totally uh, off the script. Actually, I was off the script from the very first question. But I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that question also asks what makes you get up in the morning and
No, no, no,
do
no.
things what you
I
do.
It's a little bit different question. How do you look
Okay.
at a day?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, pretty much everything has been processized. So there is a framework and there's an approach, and everything happens by default till an exception has to be made. So
Yeah.
my day looks something like this, or I would say rather a week would look like this. Monday to Friday, when I have to go to work, so okay, so I have this. Again, I have a health and fitness framework which sort of explains, not defines my day. And that framework has four variables. I call it the C framework, S and triple E, and they stand for four variables that I think are relevant to have a healthy life: sleep, eat, exercise, and expression, especially your mental health. So to me, 8 hours of sleep is what I figured out I need. So weekdays, 10:30 to 6:30 is the typical sleep time. Get up in the morning. 7 to 8 is the typical go out and the walk with my friends, have coffee, come back. 8:30, leave for office. During that 1 hour or whatever commute, there's someone or the other I'm talking to or listening to a podcast. Then in office also meeting people, doing what I do, coming back again this type of podcast. Then with family watching Netflix or having a chat or whatever thing like that. Go to sleep. So that's the weekdays. Weekend is slightly different because we do a long run on Saturday because we're all marathon runners and we have to prepare for that. So that one begins much earlier. Sometimes I may not get 8 hours of sleep, so I'll do that, have breakfast, come back and sleep. So I want to make sure I sleep. And then evening on weekends is usually badminton. And then there are other social stuff. You may have to go for shopping or some other social engagement, all that. So therefore, there's no time to think. This is all processized. It happens if someone is meeting me during the weekday. There's a place called Aloft Hotel in my campus. It's assumed that if I'm meeting someone, they'll say, okay, come over to Aloft, we'll have coffee. If I'm meeting on the weekend, there's a cafe called Terabytes near my house in Koromangla. People know that we'll meet there usually in the second half because first half is busy. So in general, the life is very well documented and known to all. And people would come for a run in the morning or coffee somewhere else or whatever in between. And therefore, one doesn't have to think much. I tell people that I don't use my CPU much more time. I don't even have too much of storage. I don't necessarily remember a lot of things. So I keep, maybe because of that, I keep my mind free, and therefore when I go to bed, I
I
sleep immediately.
I love it. Processized, documented. I think it makes bring ease to your life, and I think sometimes it can make our life more complicated. But don't give me a counter narrative to that.
No, no. I'm just validating that I told you earlier that I was lazy, and I
Before
do think,
you, I was like,
but
before you give me.
human beings are lazy. I think evolution did make sure that we remain lazy till a threat or an opportunity shows up. So I'm
Yeah.
just following evolution to say that at this time there is no threat nor huge opportunity, so I can remain lazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also, I think you're not making your life overcomplicated, and that is what probably brings harmony. As I was listening to you, there's a process, there's, place for everything and everything in its place. And so that way, nothing really, there is no bhukamp,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and you can
I think
stay
what has
steady.
changed in the last several years is that those processes are not now frameworkized. So I have reflected and created a framework out of it so that I can communicate it. And I think what I've learned is since I'm able to communicate it, I also remember it. And therefore I follow that. So in the past, maybe I was doing a bunch of things organically without just through intuition. Now in my mind, I know this, this framework of health and fitness. There's a framework for career. There's a framework for networking. There's a framework for everything else. So I think some of these discussions, podcasts, and others have made me put a framework in place by reflection, and that framework is actually helping me following it my own self, and therefore I'm able to do it repeatedly, rather than doing it organically with intuition,
So brought
with
more
intention.
discipline
Yeah,
into your life.
yeah,
You
yeah.
talked about one of the frameworks which we haven't discussed, and that's the framework for networking. What's your framework for networking?
Yeah, yeah. This was actually created not by me, but there's a guy called Manish in Dell. And I remember vividly there was a town hall type session where he was talking, and someone actually asked him this question that, Manish, how do we do networking? And he said, there are three things that I have learned over the years, and you guys can try it. And I felt it was bang on. And I said, okay, why do I have to invent another framework when someone else has created it and it works for me? So he said, whenever you meet someone, think of three things that you should do. One is share with them something that they would be interested in knowing.
Yeah.
Second is seek insight from them in something that they are really good at. And lastly, offer to help. Now, if you think about these three things, they're fairly simple. I mean, if you look at any friendship or any relationship that you have had with anyone, over a period of time, I'm quite sure organically you would have told them something that they valued, you would have sought something that you valued, and you must have helped them. But once you do it a bit intentionally, I think you can do it better, faster, more efficiently than just intuitively. So I do think that just converting our own intuition into intention through a framework can allow us to live our life more purposefully and more meaningfully is what my lesson learned is. So this networking framework is this. Just I'm talking to you. I'm seeking also something from you. You are seeking something from me. I'm sure we are going to help each other when needed. That's a
We are
network.
helping each other today. You're helping me.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
Yeah,
helping your
yeah,
voice reach to
yeah,
my listeners. Right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
This is amazing. And I bet that the women in that networking group also knew your three principles of the framework because they were practicing them. I could see with the energy of the room. They might have heard it from you at some point.
Quite possible. Like I said, all these podcasts and frameworks are available on that YouTube channel now. So I don't know. Many people tell me, "Oh, I saw that, I learned it." So it's hard for me to know who saw what. And I keep talking about it to many people. So even I haven't kept track of what I told whom.
You have a huge, YouTube video collection, which will make it available in the links, and I will also make your links available in the bio itself. So it's been just such a great pleasure speaking with you, Pankaj. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, you started my morning on a good note. Now I have to go meet an old friend. So I'm going there with a lot of positive energy thanks to this session that you had this morning.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much for making the time.